You ever wonder why people ignore you? You ever feel like you're putting yourself out there doing everything right, but still you get brushed off, overlooked, dismissed? Let me tell you something's not just about you, it's about how you present yourself. It's about the energy you put into the world. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's your fault that people ignore you. But I'll tell you this, there are reasons why it happens. And you need to know them, because once you know why it's happening, you can change it. You can turn things around. First, let's talk about this: people ignore you because they don't see value in you. And I'm not talking about material value, I'm talking about what you bring to the table. If you're always talking about yourself, always seeking validation, always looking for the next person to praise you or lift you up, then you've missed the point. People are looking for something they can't find in their own lives, something that draws them in. You got to bring something of substance. You have to be able to add value to others before you expect value to be returned to you. When you're always looking for approval, people can sense that. They can tell when you're not confident in your own worth, when you're not offering anything of depth or purpose. That's when they ignore you. You ever heard the saying, you get what you give? Well, guess what? It's the same with people. If all you're doing is taking, and never giving back, eventually people are going to stop paying attention to you. They're going to stop caring. You can't build relationships on a one-way street. If you don't know how to give, if you don't know how to help others, how can you expect them to be interested in you? If you've got nothing to offer but your own needs, you're asking for something you're not ready to give. And when people sense that, they'll ignore you. Now, let me tell you why else people ignore you. It's because you're not memorable. You're blending in with the crowd. You're doing what everyone else is doing. You're following the trends, not setting them. You're saying what people want to hear, not what they need to hear. And when you do that, you don't stand out. You don't leave an impression. And when you don't stand out, people forget about you. They don't remember your name, your face, your ideas. They move on to the next person who does something different, who has something unique to say. If you want people to pay attention to you, you have to give them something worth remembering. You can't be afraid to stand out. You can't be afraid to take risks, to say something that challenges the status quo. That's what gets people to notice you. That's what keeps them coming back. Here's another reason people ignore you: they can't hear you. I don't mean that in a literal sense. I mean they can't hear your voice, your vision, your passion. You're not speaking with conviction. You're not sticking with conviction. You're not standing firm in your beliefs. When you're unsure of yourself, when you're second-guessing your every move, people can sense that hesitation. And it doesn't matter how much you know or how good your ideas are. If you're not confident in what you're saying, if you're not speaking with power, people won't listen. They'll ignore you. You've got to stand tall. You've got to speak like you believe it. You've got to show up and let people know you're here for a reason. If you don't do that, people will walk right by you because they'll think you don't matter. People will ignore you because you don't respect their time. If you're always late, if you don't follow through on promises, if you're unreliable, guess what? People will stop paying attention. Time is the most valuable thing anyone has. And when you waste someone's time, you're telling them they're not important to you. You're telling them that whatever you have to say doesn't matter. If you want people to respect you, you've got to respect them. If you want people to take you seriously, you've got to show them that you're serious about what you're doing, that you value their time as much as your own. And let's talk about this: people ignore you because they've seen your pattern. If every time you show up, you're negative, you're complaining, you're focusing on what's wrong instead of what's right, people are going to tune you out. You can't expect people to listen to you when all you do is drain their energy. You've got to be someone who uplifts, who motivates, who challenges others to be better. You can't constantly play the victim and expect people to want to hear your story. You've got to take ownership of your life, take responsibility for your choices, and move forward with purpose. When you do that, people will notice. When you start making moves instead of excuses, people will respect you. And when they respect you, they'll listen. Here's the truth: people will ignore you when you're not living your truth. When you're pretending to be someone you're not, when you're playing a role, when you're not authentic, people see through that. People can tell when you're not being real, when you're trying to be something you're not. And when you're not true to yourself, you don't attract the right people. You don't attract the kind of attention that makes a difference. You've got to be real, you've got to be authentic. Because when you start being real, when you start being unapologetically you, that's when people start to pay attention. That's when they start to listen. So stop worrying about why people ignore you and start focusing on why they should be paying attention. Because when you show up as the best version of yourself, that's when people can't ignore you anymore. Self-worth is the foundation of everything. It's the belief you have in your own value, the understanding that you are deserving of success, respect, and happiness. Without self-worth, you will struggle to attract the things you desire in life because you won't believe you deserve them. Self-worth isn't about arrogance or vanity, it's about recognizing your own unique value and understanding your place in the world. The way you view yourself is the way the world will view you. If you see yourself as valuable, others will see you as valuable. But if you have doubts about your worth, if you don't believe in your abilities or your potential, that's exactly how others will perceive you. One of the first things to understand about self-worth is that it's not tied to external validation. Too often, people base their worth on the opinions of others. If someone praises you, you feel good about yourself. If they criticize you, you feel bad. This is a dangerous cycle because external validation is fleeting. People will always have their opinions, and some of them will be positive, some negative. If you tie your self-worth to what others think, you'll be constantly tossed around by their judgments. True self-worth comes from within. It's about understanding that your value is inherent, not based on how others treat you or how successful you are in any given moment. Once you realize this, you stop seeking approval from others, and you start to act with conviction. You stop second-guessing your every move, and you start making decisions based on what feels right for you, not based on what you think will gain you approval. Building self-worth takes time. It requires you to look at yourself honestly and recognize both your strengths and your weaknesses. It's about owning your mistakes without letting them define you and embracing your successes without letting them go to your head. You can't build self-worth by ignoring the negative aspects of yourself. You have to face them head-on and understand that they do not diminish your value. Everyone has flaws, everyone has moments of failure. But those flaws and failures don't make you less valuable, they make you human. Recognizing this is essential to developing a healthy sense of self-worth. Self-worth is also about self-compassion. Many people are their own harshest critics. They are quick to judge themselves when they make mistakes, and they hold themselves to impossible standards. But true self-worth comes from accepting that you're not perfect and that it's okay to make mistakes. It's about giving yourself the same kindness and understanding that you would give a friend. If you made a mistake, you wouldn't berate your friend for it. You would encourage them to learn from it and move forward. You need to do the same for yourself. Treat yourself with compassion and stop beating yourself up over things that are out of your control or things that happened in the past. Once you can let go of self-criticism and embrace self-compassion, your sense of self-worth will grow. Another important aspect of self-worth is setting boundaries. When you know your worth, you stop accepting behavior that diminishes you. You stop tolerating disrespect, dishonesty, or any treatment that makes you feel less than who you truly are. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It's about recognizing that your time, your energy, and your emotions are valuable. When you allow others to take advantage of you, when you let people push your boundaries, you send the message that your needs don't matter. But when you set clear boundaries, you teach people how to treat you. You show them that you respect yourself and that you expect them to do the same. This doesn't mean being rude or aggressive. It simply means being firm in your convictions and making sure that your needs are respected. Self-worth is also about taking care of yourself. When you value yourself, you take the necessary steps to ensure your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. You prioritize your health, your happiness, and your growth. This might mean saying no to things that drain you, whether it's a toxic relationship, a job that doesn't fulfill you, or habits that don't serve your well-being. It also means saying yes to things that nourish you, whether it's a hobby, a new opportunity, or taking time for self-care. When you invest in yourself, when you put time and effort into nurturing your body and your mind, you reinforce your belief that you deserve to be healthy, happy, and successful. Your self-worth affects every aspect of your life. It impacts how you interact with others, how you handle challenges, and how you make decisions. When you believe in your own worth, you act with confidence, and that confidence attracts the right people, the right opportunities, and the right circumstances. You stop wasting time on things that don't serve you, and you start focusing on the things that align with your true value. Your self-worth is a magnet for success. It draws people to you, and it opens doors that you might have once thought were closed. But it all starts with how you see yourself. If you don't believe in your own value, no one else will. You have to believe that you are worth every bit of the success, love, and happiness that you desire. And once you do, the world will start treating you accordingly. People ignore you because they don't see the value in what you have to offer. Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't about your worth as a person. This is about what you're putting out there, what you're presenting to the world. You can be the most talented, intelligent, or capable individual, but if people don't see the value in what you're offering, they will overlook you. You see, value isn't just about skills or knowledge. It's about how you make others feel, how you contribute, how you add something meaningful to their lives. When you're always seeking validation and never offering anything in return, people notice that. They feel it. And they walk away because they don't feel like they're gaining anything from you. If you want people to pay attention to you, if you want them to stop ignoring you, you've got to shift your mindset. Stop focusing on what you can get and start focusing on what you can give. The truth is, people are looking for something that resonates with them. They're not interested in your problems or your needs if they don't see how they're connected to theirs. It's about finding ways to help others, to bring value into their lives, whether it's through support, wisdom, kindness, or even just being someone who listens. If you're always trying to take from others, whether it's attention, energy, or time, it won't take long for people to start ignoring you. Why? Because you're not giving them anything they can hold on to, anything that makes them want to engage with you. You've got to put in the work to show people that you're valuable, not just by what you say, but by what you do. Actions speak louder than words. When you offer something genuine, when you bring something of substance, people start to notice. They start to value your presence. It's like this: if you keep showing up with something worthwhile, something that has meaning, eventually others will want to be around you. They'll want to know what you're about because you've given them a reason to care. You can't expect people to value you if you don't first value yourself. This starts with your mindset, with the way you approach every situation, every interaction. If you don't see yourself as someone with something valuable to offer, how can you expect others to? This doesn't mean bragging or boasting about your achievements. It means understanding your worth, knowing that you have something to contribute. When you approach situations with this kind of self-awareness, people can't ignore you because they sense that you have something solid behind you. They see the confidence you carry, not because you're trying to show off, but because you understand your value, and that attracts people. People are drawn to strength, to conviction, to someone who knows what they bring to the table. It's also important to understand that people ignore you when you're blending in too much. If you're just like everyone else, if you're not standing out, if you're not offering anything unique, you become invisible. You become part of the background noise, and that's a dangerous place to be. To avoid being ignored, you've got to find your voice. You've got to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. You've got to take risks and be willing to put yourself out there. If you don't take a chance, if you don't offer something that stands apart, you'll always be overlooked. The people who make an impact, the people who are noticed, are the ones who are unafraid to stand out. It's easy to fall into the trap of blending in, of following the crowd, of doing what's expected, but if you do that, you're not living up to your potential. You've got to be willing to be different, to be bold in your actions and your thoughts. People are attracted to the ones who push boundaries, who break the mold. They may not always agree with you, but they'll respect you because you're being real. People pay attention to authenticity. They ignore the ones who try too hard to be something they're not. Finally, people ignore you when they don't hear your voice. What do I mean by that? It's simple. If you're not speaking with conviction, if you're not confident in your words, if you're not standing firm in your beliefs, people will tune you out. When you talk, when you speak your mind, it's got to come from a place of confidence. It's got to come from a place of truth. People can tell when you're unsure of yourself, when you're second-guessing every word. They can tell when you don't believe what you're saying. When you don't believe in your own message, others won't believe in it either. But when you speak with power, when you stand behind your words and actions, people can't ignore you. They want to hear more. They want to know what's driving you, what's motivating you. They'll engage with you because you're speaking from a place of belief, and that's magnetic. If you want to be seen, if you want to be heard, if you want to stop being ignored, start giving value, start standing out, start believing in yourself, and start speaking with conviction. When you do that, people will take notice. And when they do, you'll know it's because you've become someone worth paying attention to. The reality is that most people ignore you because you're not showing up the way you need to. It's not about them, it's about you. The truth is, when people don't see you for who you are, what you bring to the table, it's because you're not being true to yourself. When you're hiding behind facades or playing it small, it's almost impossible for people to see the real you, the one with all the value, the talent, and the potential. You might have something incredible to offer, but if you're not bringing it to the surface, no one will notice. It's easy to slip into the pattern of blending in because it's comfortable. You think you're avoiding attention by staying in the background, but in reality, you're just making yourself invisible. And when you're invisible, no one can see the greatness within you. People ignore you because you aren't demanding attention in the right way. There's a difference between begging for attention and commanding it. Begging for attention is about trying to force others to recognize you, relying on external validation, doing whatever it takes to be noticed. But commanding attention is different. It's about showing up with confidence, walking into a room and owning it, not because you're trying to impress people, but because you believe in your own worth. You don't need to scream or shout to get noticed. When you're confident in who you are and what you bring, people can't help but pay attention. Confidence is magnetic. When you know your worth, when you understand your value, people naturally gravitate toward you. They want to be in your presence. But that only happens when you stop shrinking, when you stop playing small and let yourself shine. The truth is, people ignore you when you're too predictable. Life is about excitement and challenge. If you're offering the same thing over and over again with no growth, no innovation, no uniqueness, people will begin to overlook you. When you're not changing, when you're not evolving, you become stale. You become part of the background noise. But when you're constantly growing, when you're learning new things, challenging yourself, pushing boundaries, that's when people start to take notice. People gravitate toward change, toward progress, toward growth. It excites them. It makes them want to be part of what you're doing. It makes them want to follow your lead. So if you're wondering why people aren't paying attention to you, ask yourself, am I growing? Am I changing? Am I offering something new? If the answer is no, it's time to switch it up. Another reason people ignore you is that you're not engaging with them in a meaningful way. We live in a world where everyone is distracted, constantly bombarded with information, social media, and noise. People aren't just looking for someone to talk to. They're looking for someone who can truly engage with them. It's about connection. If you're simply showing up and saying things without actually connecting with people, without making them feel seen or heard, you're not creating a space for meaningful interactions. People want to feel like they matter, like their voices are valued. If you're not giving them that, if you're not making the effort to connect on a deeper level, they'll move on to someone who does. This means being genuinely interested in others, listening to what they have to say, understanding their needs, and showing that you care. When you make an effort to build relationships, when you invest time in others, they'll begin to see you. They'll start to engage with you because you're not just another face in the crowd, you're someone who adds value to their life. At the same time, you have to be authentic. People are tired of fake. They can spot it from a mile away. They ignore you because they feel like you're not being real with them. When you're not authentic, when you're pretending to be something you're not, people see right through it. They won't invest time or energy in someone who's pretending. They're looking for realness, for truth, for transparency. If you want people to pay attention, you've got to be authentic in everything you do. Stop pretending. Stop putting on a mask. Let people see the real you, flaws and all. When you do that, when you stop hiding behind a facade, people will connect with you on a much deeper level. Authenticity is powerful because it shows strength. It shows you're confident in who you are, and that is something people respect. Lastly, people ignore you when you don't show up consistently. If you're here one day and gone the next, people will stop noticing you. Consistency builds trust. It shows that you're reliable, that you're committed, and that you're serious about your work, your relationships, and your goals. When you're consistent, people start to know that they can count on you, that you're always going to bring something valuable to the table. But when you're inconsistent, when you're hot one minute and cold the next, people start to tune you out because they don't know what to expect from you. Consistency is the key to being seen and heard. When you show up day after day, doing the work, offering value, staying true to your word, people will take notice, they'll start to respect you, they'll start to appreciate you, and they'll start paying attention to everything you do. If you feel like people are ignoring you, take a good look at how you're showing up. Are you being authentic? Are you consistently offering value? Are you growing and changing? Are you engaging with others in a meaningful way? The way you show up determines how others see you. And if you're not getting the attention you want, it might be time to make some changes. Start owning your value, showing up with confidence, and being true to who you are. When you do, people won't be able to ignore you. People ignore you when you're not creating a sense of urgency in your actions. There's a certain energy that comes from individuals who are driven by purpose, who move with urgency, and that energy is contagious. When you're simply going through the motions, when you're not taking your goals seriously, people notice. They see that you're not committed to your journey, and when you lack that urgency, others will start to tune you out. Why? Because they know you're not really in it. If you want to stop being ignored, you have to show people that you're serious about your time, your goals, and your mission. People are attracted to those who are decisive, who act with conviction, and who take their lives into their own hands. When you operate with urgency, you send a message to others that you're here to get things done, and you're not waiting around for the right moment to act. You take control, and that control commands attention. Another reason people ignore you is because you're afraid of failure. Fear is one of the biggest reasons why people hesitate to act, why they play it safe and hold back. The truth is, failure is part of the process. You can't win every time. But it's in those failures that you learn, grow, and refine your skills. If you're afraid of failing, you'll never put yourself in a position to succeed. You'll always hold back, and people will sense that hesitation. They'll see the lack of confidence in your actions, and they won't engage with you because they can tell you're not fully committed to what you're doing. But when you step into fear, when you embrace failure as a part of the journey, you break through barriers. People are drawn to those who have the courage to take risks, to fail, and to keep moving forward. It's that kind of resilience that commands respect and gets attention. People may ignore you if you play it safe, but they can't ignore you when they see you face fear head on and keep pushing forward. People also ignore you when you're not present. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in distractions. We're always thinking about the next task, the next meeting, the next goal. But the reality is, people can tell when you're not fully present in a conversation, in a room, in a moment. They know when you're distracted or when your mind is somewhere else. And when you're not fully present, you miss the opportunity to connect. You miss the chance to make a real impact. If you want to be noticed, you have to show up and be engaged, be present. When you're engaged in the moment, when you show up with your full attention, people can't help but notice. They feel heard, seen, and understood, and that's a powerful feeling. People are drawn to those who can make them feel like they matter, like their time is valued. If you're not present, people will turn their attention elsewhere. But when you give them your full attention, they'll begin to take notice of you. You might also be ignored because you're not being proactive, waiting for things to happen, hoping that opportunities will fall into your lap is a surefire way to be overlooked. People who make things happen, who take action, are the ones who get noticed. They don't sit around waiting for the perfect moment, they create it. Being proactive means that you're always looking for ways to move forward, for ways to contribute, for ways to make an impact. It means being in control of your circumstances, not waiting for someone else to pull the strings for you. People are attracted to those who don't wait for opportunities, but make their own opportunities. When you take action, when you go after what you want with intention, people see that drive. They respect it. They begin to recognize you as someone who gets things done, and that's hard to ignore. And let's talk about consistency once again. People will ignore you if you're inconsistent. Consistency is what builds trust and reliability. When you show up day after day doing the work, fulfilling your promises, and following through, people begin to rely on you. They know that they can count on you, but when you're inconsistent, when you're here one day and gone the next, people won't invest in you. They'll look elsewhere for stability. Consistency doesn't mean you never take a break. It means showing up when you say you will, sticking to your commitments, and not leaving others hanging. When you're consistent in your actions, your words, and your behavior, you send a message that you're dependable. People notice that, and they gravitate toward you because they know you're someone they can count on. Lastly, people ignore you when you're not creating value for others. It's simple. If you're not offering something worthwhile, if you're not providing value, people won't have a reason to engage with you. Value doesn't always have to be something tangible. Sometimes it's in the way you make people feel, in the way you listen, in the advice you offer, and the support you provide. People seek out those who make their lives easier, who help them solve problems, who make them think differently. When you're focused on giving, when you're adding value in a meaningful way, people can't ignore you. They'll see the difference you're making, and they'll want to be part of your journey. If you're not adding value, if you're just taking, people will move on. But when you give without expecting anything in return, you create a ripple effect that makes it impossible for people to ignore you. People ignore you because you're not showing up the way you need to. You've got to show up with urgency, with presence, with action, with consistency, and with value. When you do that, people can't help but take notice. It's not about them, it's about how you show up. When you show up powerfully, authentically, and consistently, you won't be ignored. People ignore you when you fail to recognize your own value. When you don't see the worth in yourself, others will struggle to see it as well. You might be waiting for validation from the outside, hoping that others will affirm your worth, but that's not how it works. Validation must start from within. If you don't recognize what makes you unique, what makes you special, and what you bring to the table, others won't either. This is about understanding your strengths, your talents, your potential. When you acknowledge these things about yourself, you're no longer waiting for someone else to give you the approval you need. You walk into every room, every situation with the confidence that you know exactly what you bring to the table. That kind of self-awareness attracts respect and attention. When you know your worth, it shows in everything you do. People can't help but notice. But when you're unsure, when you downplay your value, when you hesitate to stand tall in who you are, people will walk past you without a second glance. Another reason people ignore you is that you're not challenging them enough. If you're not offering something that makes people think, if you're not pushing them to be better, to think bigger, to consider new perspectives, they'll tune you out. People are attracted to ideas that challenge them. They want to grow, they want to evolve, and they want to be stretched beyond their comfort zones. If you're simply offering the same old thing, playing it safe, keeping things comfortable and familiar, people will ignore you. They'll go elsewhere for something that sparks curiosity, for something that drives them to change, to learn, to push their limits. If you're not challenging others, you're not creating space for them to grow, and without that growth, you become irrelevant. People seek out those who can make them think differently, who can ignite something within them, who can lead them to greater possibilities. When you challenge people, when you inspire them to do more, to be more, they can't ignore you. The reason people ignore you might also be because you're too focused on what you can get rather than what you can give. If you're always looking for what others can do for you, if you're constantly taking and never giving, people will notice. And they'll pull away. People are drawn to those who add value to their lives, not those who constantly take. If you're only focused on getting something out of the relationship, whether it's money, recognition, or status, people will begin to see you as self-serving, and they'll move on. On the other hand, when you're focused on how you can contribute, how you can help, how you can give without expecting anything in return, people notice that. They see you as someone who genuinely cares about others, someone who is willing to invest time and energy into building meaningful connections. Giving without expecting anything in return creates goodwill, creates trust, and makes it impossible for people to ignore you. When you're seen as a person who adds value, who contributes, who uplifts others, people want to be around you. They want to support you. They want to work with you. That's the power of giving. People will ignore you if you're too passive. When you're waiting for things to happen, hoping that opportunities will come to you, you're allowing yourself to be overlooked. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens because of you. The world moves for those who take action, for those who step up and create opportunities. If you're sitting back, waiting for the perfect time, waiting for the right person to come along and hand you your chance, you're missing out. You're not positioning yourself in a way that demands attention. People notice those who are actively pursuing their goals, who are making moves, who are consistently taking steps toward what they want. Passive people blend into the background. They don't make things happen. They wait for things to happen to them, and in doing so, they fade into the crowd. But when you take action, when you step out and make your own opportunities, people can't ignore you. You're in control, and that's what others want to see. They want to see you take charge, make bold moves, and show that you're capable of making things happen. Lastly, people ignore you when you're not consistent. Consistency is the foundation of trust and reliability. If you're unpredictable, if you show up only when it's convenient, people will stop paying attention to you. Consistency isn't just about showing up every day, it's about showing up with intention. It's about being reliable in your actions, in your words, and in your commitments. People need to know that they can count on you. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you promise something, follow through. When you're inconsistent, when you fail to deliver on your promises, people stop depending on you. But when you're consistent, when people know that you will always bring your best, that you will always deliver on your word, you start to build a reputation. That reputation is powerful. It says that you can be trusted. It says that you're someone people can count on. It says that you're reliable. And people can't ignore that. Consistency is what builds a strong foundation, a reputation that's hard to break. It's the reason people trust you, respect you, and want to work with you. If you're being ignored, take a hard look at how you're showing up. Are you showing up with confidence? Are you challenging others to think bigger? Are you focused on giving instead of getting? Are you taking action and creating opportunities? Are you consistent in your approach? The way you show up in the world determines whether or not people will notice you. When you recognize your own value, when you challenge others, when you give more than you take, when you take action, and when you take action, and when you are consistent, you will stop being ignored. People will see you, they will take notice of you.